I call this meeting of the Garland Independent School District Board of Trustees meeting to order. This is the June 24th, 2014 meeting that was duly called according to notice that is posted in a manner as prescribed by law. We please rise for the pledges. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
All right, we're going to start with our information items. First on the agenda is the Evidence of Excellence Awards, but we've got some students that are coming in a little bit later, so we're going to move that down on the agenda. So the next item is the receive synergistic updates. Is that Mr. Wright?
Oh, here we go. Mr. Lambert, Dr. Morrison, board members and staff, thank you for the opportunity to present to you what the energy conservation program is that you elected to bring to the district and we're implementing with Synergistic. I'm going to give you some data from the first 6 months, or what is called our quick start period. In the first 6 months, which is in September through February, through the efforts of everyone in the district and the staff, we have saved the district over $449,000, 61, which is an 8.1% savings. In actuality, that number is a little higher. It is over $500,000 because in the process of what we do on a daily basis of analyzing utility bills and other items, we had found that we were getting billed inappropriately some state sales tax through the city of Garland with utilities, and we're working to get that all reconciled, so we actually are over $500,000 during that time. And as I mentioned, we're in our quick start period here, which is reflected from September through the end of February. Where the star is on the graph is where we came on board as energy specialists and started our training with the Synergistic organization to implement the program within the district. And now we're into our performance year. This just shows you how the utilities that the district utilized in that first 6 months period breaks out. Obviously, you see the major portion is electricity, almost $4 million or 71%. Natural gas at 11.3, water 13%, and your trash, refuse, fire protection 4.6%. This just breaks it out for you a little better by utility. In the electrical, you'll see on the left bar graph, you see the actual usage or the kilowatts. On the right graph, you see the actual dollars or cost. Your first line, your baseline, for example, in the cost graph, the baseline year was from September of 2012 through August of 2013. And what we did is that baseline, we analyzed the district's use patterns, utilities, occupancy for that one whole year. We actually went back 2 years to see trends, but we used the 1 year as the baseline. The next graph you see, which is expected, that is what, without an energy conservation effort in effect, based on your usage in your facilities, what you would have used. The last graph you see, the actual, shows what actually came out, and this is adjusted from what weather conditions. It's called the baseline adjusted to current conditions. So as you remember, this year we had quite an unusual winter, or what's called a polar vortex. So we put those factors through the software we use, which is Energy Cap, which analyzes all that. We actually ended up spending less which is a good thing, than expected, to a savings of $3.8 million, or 3 million kilowatts, $283,000. Gas, which you see here, and again, you see the average unit cost increased with gas of 13.2%. And we may see another increase this upcoming year in the gas. The baseline year, 391,000, and you see a big jump there in expected. And what that is, if you remember back this year in that period from September through February, the winter that we had. That's again referring to the polar vortex. So we had ice days, which lasted several days in a row, which weren't in comparison to the prior year. So the actual that we did spend was $624,000, which gave us an avoided cost of $68,232. The last utility is your water comparison. You see your baseline year, $735,000. Again, you saw an increase in the average unit cost of water of 11.4%. You'll probably continue to see an increase in water in the Texas drought conditions and what we're facing, unless we get more rain, which is on its way. So you see the actual cost here of $643,000 for a savings of $90,713. This is just a good example here to show how everybody works together to cause this, because this isn't a period of time where we were cutting back irrigation or pouring water and telling people not to run fountains, but this is just the district's use in conservation. The prior year, if you remember back, was extremely warm. So back in that baseline year, there was more watering going on, and this is just through what's going on every day through the people in irrigation. They're doing a phenomenal job in many of our maintenance departments, but this is just one example. Energy Star. We are signed up as an Energy Star partner, and I'm sure every one of you has seen that logo whenever you go to buy an appliance or anything if it's Energy Star rated. You want to buy that because, again, it gives you national recognition and validation to what you're purchasing or what our program is about. It demonstrates our good stewardship to reducing our carbon footprint. We are signed up, and this year we'll start applying for recognition for campuses as they get that status, and we will have several campuses which will qualify. Where does all that come down over the first year? Well, we've saved over 3 million kilowatts of electricity, 14,000 therms of natural gas, or 16,000 kgals of water. Putting that down into layman terms, it's 2,638 metric tons reduced of carbon, or removing 550 automobiles for an entire year off the road, or planting 67,644 trees and letting them grow for 10 years, replacing the oxygen. So we are cognizant of our carbon footprint and reducing that and getting everybody involved, the staff, the students. What we do as energy specialists, the day in the life of here, there's 4 of us, and all the team members are in the back here, that work in this program every day. We have Aaron Markison, Gary Boffin, and Tracy Mitchell in there. They're all involved every day, as I am, with the team working with the districts. But we're required to do 20 to 25 audits in the campuses a week. Bottom line, you've got 100 more visits in campuses or sets of eyes out there looking for things that can be improved on, tightened up. We're in the buildings when the teachers and students are in there, and that's what we're concerned with, making them comfortable during occupied time. But when we're not in the buildings, we want to be able to shut things down and save energy. We have one-on-one training with Synergistic, their staff. We've had 47 visits from their engineers and people that specialize in whether it's boilers, chillers, electrical use, gas consumption, and cool water plants. We're working with EMS and the maintenance team on the scheduling of the schools to make sure that it's cool when they get there and throughout the day. We're matching the conditioning times to occupied times, and that's what we're really looking at. And we've had some fine-tuning this year, and we'll continue to do that over the summer. Strategic planning for extended breaks. This is probably the first summer that the district as a whole has had to look at a shutdown to coordinate the efforts of maintenance crews stripping and re-waxing floors, replacing floors, technology, re-imaging computers, food service consolidation of product. And it's gone very well. Everybody has gotten on board and participated with the program. Continuous communication with the teachers and staff. Again, we're visiting them each and every week through creation of lighting plans, whatever we need to do to make it comfortable for them when they're at school. We're making an energy conservation culture in the district, right? Talking to the people. And we found when we get to speak with some of the people in the schools and they realize what we're doing and turning off computers, turning off lights when you leave, the same things you do at home, that it makes a big difference when you have 25,000 computers in the district or 88 facilities. Every little bit counts. And we're continually assessing and reassessing the program through our weekly visits, monitoring of utility bills, entering and looking for trends in our campuses. But none of this would happen if everybody wasn't together. I mean, it starts with you, the board members of the school board who brought this program to us and are allowing us to implement it within the district. Tom Whitley's just one example over in the EMS program who has been so valuable in implementing this program and making the adjustments and changes as needed. And he's the front line that takes the comfort complaint calls as well. So we work very closely with him in making sure that our staff and students are taken care of. Custodians implementing the lighting plans, our elementary principals for following the lighting plans and implementing them. Teachers, the boots on the ground. These are the ones who implement it in the classroom. Our elementary teachers have some students they call Power Rangers, so they can go help them turn things off and remind them. And it's just a wonderful concept when you get the children involved. All the high school principals have been instrumental. We just mentioned a few here who we've worked very closely with in implementing this program. Again, we couldn't do it without the teachers, the staff, and our maintenance staff. Our accomplishments, again, the shutdowns. When you all go home for break, that's when we dive in and get working very hard to make things sure are shut down when they need to be. Changing the culture in the district to one of conservation instead of leaving it on the next person will turn it off. After school runtime of lighting. I'm sure each and every one of you have driven around the district at times and seen those lights are on over there. Wow, it's late at night, why are they on? That's what we're out there. We're out there at 5 different times of the day. We start at 4 in the morning sometimes and we'll go till midnight at night. And then we're in there with the teachers. We're very flexible so we can be there when they need us to be. Fostering the relationships with our electric providers and our community. Where's the future of our program? Hopefully this year we'll initiate campus-based incentives for increasing the awareness of the program. We'll apply for Energy Star recognition as campuses come along, and that'll be an exciting thing for the principal and students to see that recognition come to their campuses. We all will be training as energy specialists over the summer on the EMS so we can help where needed with Tom and everyone over there in scheduling what we need to do. And again, coming into this district, you know, we found in talking with the people from Synergistic, our people are doing a lot of the things already that make this effective. And one example is in irrigation. Most districts might check their irrigation systems once a year or only as needed. Our district checks them twice a year, and they've been doing that for the last few years. So there's a lot of good systems in place, and Paul and Joel and their crew over at Pageant have done a phenomenal job, and they've been right there to work with us in every way. And we're going to continue to develop the energy conservation culture. I had Dr. Barajas work with me one night and going in buildings to see what it's like, and I'd like to open the invitation to anyone, staff or trustees, and we can work around your schedule anytime, day or night, because we're out there. We'd love to have you come out and see what we do in saving money for our students and staff. And with that, I'll be happy to entertain any questions if you have any.
Are there any questions regarding this action item? Yes, Dr.
It's
Castaneda.
nice to see you again, Mr. Reimer.
Thank
Can you tell me what has been the biggest surprise in both positive and maybe as a challenge in implementing the program?
I don't know about a surprise. Anytime you bring change, there's always, explaining it and adjusting to it. I'm surprised at how many of the teachers are jumping behind this. I mean, I consider my generation didn't grow up as green as the young people coming out now, and they're jumping on board right away, and they're happy to get the kids involved. Challenges, we're an old district. We've got a lot of old facilities, so just getting around to see what's out there, analyze it, speak with the people in maintenance, speak with our expert engineers, and see what we can do to resolve it. So nothing really good or bad, just normal when you bring a program of this magnitude into a district of this size.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Any other questions? Mr. Reimer, thank you very much for the
Thank you.
report.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go back on our agenda to the Evidence of Excellence Awards. Mr. Moore is going to talk to us about the Austin Academy pentathlon team.
Thank you, Mr. Lambert. Trustees, Dr. Morrison. To say the 7th and 8th grade academic pentathlon teams at Austin Academy had a successful year would be correct. However, that would not do justice to what this group of students and teachers accomplished throughout the 2013-14 school year. Their story began in February, when both groups won their respective divisions at the district meet against other GISD schools. 7th and 8th graders then repeated that feat at the Region 3 meet against campuses from Rockwall and McKinney ISD. And when those regional scores were tallied across the state, Austin once again landed on top, earning the only 7th and 8th grade slots awarded to schools throughout Texas at the national competition in Omaha, Nebraska. Things got a little interesting when they reached Omaha because based on the guidelines, students are thrown into one mass contest. 7th grade students compete against 8th grade students. 7th grade teams compete against 8th grade teams, all vying for those national titles. In all, 12 teams were gathered from across 10 states, and several other students went to compete in their individual categories. The categories included language and literature, fine arts and American culture, mathematics, science, social studies, and the super quiz, which this year's theme was World War I. When the dust settled, Austin's 8th grade team won the national title, and the 7th grade team finished in second place. Again, that's overall. The 8th grade won first place, 7th grade won second place, so GISD swept the top 2 spots. And in addition to winning those team titles, 45 other students brought home individual titles as well. As an added bonus, when they left the contest, the students were able to visit the National World War I Museum in Kansas City, Missouri, which allowed them the opportunity to give a real-life perspective on the studies that they had taken part in throughout the course of the year. So they are here with us tonight, so please join me in welcoming from Austin Academy the 8th grade and 7th grade academic pentathlon champions.
There's a lot of metal in here. Students, I know your parents are proud of you. I want you to know that your school district and your school board are proud of you. Puts a big smile on my face to see that you guys won the national championship, and then to also have the seventh grade team come in second place. Of course, now you 7th graders, you understand that means you've got to win it now. So hopefully you already worked on it. But we have these certificates that we'd like to add to your medal count.
Y'all can kind of maybe scooch in, just make a little bit more of a centered group, right between you guys on that side, kind of come in a little
Maybe
bit.
double up, get a row up front and then one in the back here.
Some of the girls can come in the front.
Come on, you know each other, you can get close.
Okay.
Mr. Lambert, Dr. Morrison, and members of the board, I just want to take this opportunity to thank you for making time to recognize our students' accomplishments. Their successes are truly reflective of their efforts throughout the school year in preparing for the pentathlon competition, and we thank you for your support in making their trip to Omaha possible. And we also like to thank the parents for the support of our children. So again, thank you. We're proud of all of you, and we thank everybody for their support. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda is the presentation of the elementary art program. Mr. Jones?
Thank you. Before I begin my presentation tonight, I hope that as you came in, you had an opportunity in the doorway there to look up. The IB classes from Garland High School have spent a year-long project to create the sculpture that is out in the entryway. It's based on the Elizabeth Barrett Browning quote, "Light tomorrow with today," and it's called Optimism for a Brighter Tomorrow. We will be coming back to you later on to recognize those students who worked so hard to make that possible. Mr. Lambert, Dr. Morrison, and members of the board, the very first week that I was named Director of Fine Arts for the Garland School District, I had an appointment with a woman who was the chairperson of the Arts in Education for the City Council PTA. She walked into my office carrying this rock, and I thought, oh my heavens, what have I gotten myself into? And I was really relieved that she didn't throw it at me, but instead she put it down, and the message on the rock was very clear. It says, "All children deserve art." And tonight, I'm pleased to be here to talk to you about the 5-year plan to roll out elementary art on our campuses and hopefully to make the message on the rock a reality. Why 5 years? The 5-year time period is going to give us time to hire qualified teachers. One of the non-negotiables in our 5-year plan is that we will only hire art teachers with an art education degree who are fully art certified. Now, this is not necessarily an easy task for us to find, but we are already well ahead of the curve. Brenda Haas, my colleague, the Fine Arts Coordinator, has, since the last 2 weeks in May, has already interviewed 29 art candidates. And so people are really being drawn to what we're doing. Brenda is the woman over there with the glazed look in her eye after interviewing that many folks. We've also made contact with the art education departments of 27 Texas universities, college, and community colleges, telling them about our 5-year rollout plan. And needless to say, their responses have been very positive and, dare I say, very enthusiastic. The Texas Art Educators Association holds their convention every year in November, and as part of that convention, they have a job fair. And you can bet that Brenda Haas and I will be there at a table trying to meet as many potential art candidates as possible. And of course, our secondary art teachers realize that their programs are getting ready to get a big boost by having elementary art in our schools. So we are going to count on them to reach out to their colleagues and hopefully attract more qualified teachers to the Garland School District for our elementary art program. The 5-year plan also is going to give us time to make sure that we have the proper facilities in place for a quality art program. We currently have a significant number of our elementary campuses that have a room with a sink that can be used for art immediately. Mr. Falcone and his staff have already been assisting us to locate classrooms that have running water so that a sink can be installed and the room can be used for art. Another challenge is that you can't have an art room with carpet in it. So we're also working to take those rooms and make sure that we either have tile or bare concrete. So what will this cost? Needless to say, we're going to have to hire art teachers over the next 5 years. The staffing of the art positions for at least the first 3 years of the rollout will be accomplished primarily through the reallocation of existing budgeted teaching units as determined by HR during the annual spring staffing process. I already talked a little bit about the facilities. Some schools will be able to use their existing furniture in their art rooms, while others are going to need tables. You've got to have little bigger tables because students are sitting across from each other working on art projects. Brenda has already met with some of our vendors, and we've already started to order that equipment for the schools that need it. When we added the art program this year at Doherty and Pearson, we developed a list of standard equipment that each new art room would need. We are in the process of getting this equipment ordered so that it will be available on the very first day of school. Now, we all know that you can't reuse paper and you can't reuse paint, so these consumables must be replaced on a regular basis, and rather than asking the building principals to dip into their budgets, we are going to allocate an additional $3 per student to each of the campuses that have art to replenish those supplies as needed. So how are we going to make this work? We believe in providing a well-rounded education for all GISD students. During a given week, our elementary students will experience art, music, library, computer lab, PE, intervention, and of course the thing called classroom instruction. Tina Garvin from Library Services, Brenda Hass from Fine Arts, and Louise Gartell from Health and PE worked together this year to produce a document called the Optimal Program Framework and Sample Schedules for our building principals. These ladies will continue to work with our building principals to help them develop schedules that will include quality instruction in all areas. We are so excited to be joining our neighboring districts, which already have elementary art in place. We have a strong bond with the fine arts administrators in the area and have already reached out to them and visited with them about the schedules that they have developed that work best for student learning. And of course, the fine arts have new TEKs that will go into effect for the 2015-16 school year. As a result, we will be spending the next year revising and rewriting our current curriculum for art. So here is the year rollout for year one. These campuses will have an art instructor on their campus in a dedicated art room for the next school year. Back, Beaver, Carver, Cooper, Herforth, Luna, North Lake, Parkcrest, Shugart, Southgate, and Stedham. And then, so that will be 11 that we will add this year. We'll add 7 in the next 3 years, and then by the year 2018-19, we are going to add the last 8, and every one of our elementary campuses will have elementary art in place. We came before you a few weeks ago to present Evidence of Excellence Awards to students who achieved in the visual arts scholastic event, who achieved really high scores. And here's just an example of some of that amazing artwork by those high school students. Now, we just ask you to imagine this. Imagine if these same students would have had art in grades K through 12 instead of 6 through 12. This additional component of elementary art in our district will prepare our students for the creative workforce of the future. And we thank you for your support in this project, and we're very, very excited about what's coming ahead. Who has questions?
Questions on this informational item?
Mr. Jones, I'm very excited about this. And what are the trends nationwide with art programs at elementary levels?
I know that Fort Worth a couple years ago added art on all of their campuses, only they did it all in 1 year. That's why it made the headlines. You know, in some of the northern states where the money is really tight, they're actually cutting art programs. We are fortunate in the Dallas area, really in the whole state of Texas, that most schools do have some sort of an elementary art program, even if it's teachers that travel from campus to campus. But we're going to do it right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Jones, you talked about the preparation of our workforce. Can you tell us just a little bit more about how these art programs will assist us in preparing our students for workforce opportunities.
Well,
in
you
the
know,
future.
there's a big trend. A guy by the name of Daniel Pink talks about the preparation of the next generation and how different it's going to look from the people who their parents who grew up in factory jobs. What we're looking for now is people who are creative, people who have creative thoughts, who think outside the box. And simply by offering these opportunities for students to express themselves artistically, musically, in the theater programs, however the fine arts, those are the type of employees that companies in the future are going to be looking for. And we're right on the cutting edge of it.
Any other questions? All right.
Again, thank you.
Mr. Jones, thank you very much for your presentation. All right, the next item on our agenda is our public forum. Before we get started on the public forum, I want to remind everyone of our process. Please, whenever you're recognized, come up to the podium, state your name and your address, and then we will begin your 3 minutes. I think we have several folks that are here to talk about, or representative of our swim team. So let's start with that group, and we'll start with Amy Goins.
Good evening, Mr. Lambert, Dr. Morrison, and trustees. My name is Amy Goins. I live at 2610 Brittany Drive. I have 2 students in the district, one at Garland High and one at Austin Academy. They couldn't be here tonight because they're at scout camp. So I decided to bring a few other friends with me tonight. And I would like, is there anybody still in the hall? I don't think so. Okay. Since the summer swim team season is upon us, I have gotten to know and talk to many people in the swimming community that swim for the summer leagues. And I got to sending some emails, and everybody's very interested and excited about the possibility of getting a natatorium for our district and our community. So I'd like to ask the people who came tonight, if you are a parent or a swimmer or an alumni or a coach of the Mighty Owl swim team, would you stand, please? And if you are a member or a coach or parent or booster or anything of the Rowlett Rays, would you stand, please? And if you are a member or a coach or a parent or a swimmer of the Garland Gators, would you stand, please? We have a coach, yes. And I believe we have a swimmer from Richardson, help me out with the name. Rapids, Richardson Rapids. Thank you all for coming tonight. I'd like you to remain standing, please. All these athletes who are standing here before you, they have one goal. And they'll all tell you the exact same thing. What's your goal? And they all say the same thing. It's 2 words. Get faster. They want to get faster. And they show consistent dedication to their sport. I invite you, if you have never seen a swim meet, to come to one and bring a snack and some shade. But you will see some of the most amazing displays of athleticism. It's really true. We have TAAF state competitors here tonight. My son has been fortunate enough to do that for 3 years. It's a wonderful experience. And we wanted to come tonight again to express our appreciation and excitement about a natatorium and all the possibilities for our students when we have a facility in place that's going to help them reach that one goal, which is to, what is it, guys? Get a natatorium. All right, thank you very much.
Ms. Goins, thank you very much for your time coming to talk to us today. I think we also have a member of the swim team that wants to speak to us, Jacob Seibert? Seibert. Thank you, sir.
Good evening. Thank you, President Lambert, for letting me speak. I am Jacob Seibert, an alumni from North Garland High School, and I live at 521 Green Cove Drive. Over the last 4 years, I swam on the swim team, and we had quite a few hardships. Now, one of the many issues that we did have was that the natatorium was not one of the best facilities that we could have used. If we were to get a proper facility, we would be able to have a beacon for people to see that is where the swim team meets. That would provide motivation for people to go and come and see what the young people of Garland are doing. And it would be a place for, it would just be a good place to promote swimming. One of what I would say is the best sport out there. Going back to the quality of the facility, in the past, we had to send a swimmer to the hospital in 2011 due to there was a spider bite. And one of the other issues we have during the winter is pool heaters, which makes it, if lack of a proper heater, we are incapable of swimming in the cold weather of winter, which y'all know is not the best. And another thing about the natatorium is that it was one of the investments out there that would provide a return in revenue due to the ability to host meets, hold lifeguard courses, and renting it out to various other swim clubs, such as some of the ones mentioned previous, and a few other things. And it would just be a good thing to have for the different young people around there. It would be a place for people to go and exercise, and it would just be another place to be in the water, which is something that we need. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, thank you for those of you that are interested in our swim program, and I want to thank all of our community members and stakeholders who have taken their time over the last 8 or so months to provide us input with regard to our facilities. That's certainly the input that we need, and we appreciate very much your taking the time to come and talk to us about that, and look forward to your involvement going forward as we continue to work through this process. Next on our agenda, or next card, is Katrina Swallow.
Good evening, Dr. Morrison, the board. I'm also here on behalf of the swimming program. One of the things I've seen as a parent is, with having 2 children grow up in this district, is one really into football. Played football for Naaman Forest, graduated from there, loved the sport. So much money flows into football. My 10-year-old has no desire to play football. His athletic dream started with Michael Phelps in a pool. And he can't really follow that in this district. There's a swimming program, but it's very fledgling. And that, as a parent, is very bothersome to me because I don't feel like he gets enough of the support for his athletic dream that so many other kids get with their athletic dreams, be it basketball, football, soccer, whatever. I've been doing a little bit of research on the natatorium thing. Amy and I know each other from the kids going to school together, and being on a summer swim team, you're kind of at the mercy of the weather. You're at the mercy of the heat, the rain. We've had practice canceled twice the last 2 weeks because of water. Also, being on a summer swim team, we get to rent facilities for our meets. I've been to Frisco for the last 5 years as a part of our swim team to the state championships that they hold there. It's a 4-day meet that the Y rents out of the Frisco ISD. That's concession money that goes to their swim programs. That's rental fees because they rent the entire facility for 4 days. And that's a ton of money. If you equate it to kind of like the Colwell Center, the cost of building a natatorium is half the cost that it costs to build the Colwell Center. And look how much revenue comes in from that, from renting it out to all the different school districts, all the different events. And you can do the same thing with a natatorium. Allen built theirs in conjunction with the city. So they have their Learn to Swim programs. They have a rec pool built there as well. They went together in a joint venture to build it, so it's not as much income from or expense from each side, but they both get to use it. And then they still have rental fees, you know, from birthday parties and club teams that want to rent out. I believe the same facility that GISD uses for their swim, we have friends on a club team that swim there too, and they're looking to find another pool facility for their team as well. So the income possibilities are endless with building a natatorium, and I think it's a great thing, not just for our kids in this district, but it also to bring money back in and recoup some of those costs. Thank you.
Thank you. And our last card is Verna Melton.
Okay, the green light will start when I start.
If you will state your name and your address, then the green light will start.
Okay. First, I want to thank you, Dr. Morrison, Superintendent Morrison, President Lambert, and to the Garland School District. And a special thanks to you, Mr. Luna, for inviting me today. My name is Verna Milton. I am a resident of Garland, Southern Garland for 16 years, and my address is 4413 Fair Lake Drive. And I'm also the owner of Verna's Ventures. And today I am here, and to expedite time, I have given you all what I am going to say, but it's in detailed form, a letter, and also a bag for you to evaluate and to see my presentation. I would like to, as I stand here today, I want to ask you to consider clear totes and backpacks for public safety, for school safety, for better safety in our Garland schools and stadiums. We hope and I ask that it be considered in the next agenda or one of your agendas this year. On February the 26th, Verna's Ventures first announced our goals for Dallas County in the Dallas City Council in their flag room. At the end of that day, WFAA TV had over 95% tweets from the entire city for positive tweets for this particular project. These totes will be a deterrent, as well as making the job of checking for dangerous items such as knives, guns, drugs, and liquor much more effective and efficient, while expediting entry into the stadiums and other public events. The Homeland Security ranks stadiums attacks as the 12 most devastating possible acts of terrorism. Today, after 90 days of grassroots campaigning for these clear totes, Verna's Ventures have received endorsements from both Democrat and high-ranking Republicans, as well as other great leaders. Some of them are Senator John Corona, as well as Dallas County DA Craig Watson. Community leaders, Dallas Morning News legend Pastor George Proud, and the Baptist Ministers Union. Last year, 2013, NFL strongly mandated that all 31 stadiums, beginning with the preseason games, must carry these totes. If the NFL can see the need for better security for their fans, why can't we have the same concern for our students and parents? We believe although a terrorist attack upon a school within Texas may be improbable, but the first step toward preparedness is admitting that it is at least possible. Our school students and events attendees deserve to have a safer and better environment. With our PVC totes, this can be a fundraiser for the schools of Garland with 100%, with the 100% profit. In your package, I have detailed that, and I hope you will consider looking at your package and give us an opportunity to make Dallas and Garland one of the first to implement this project. Okay, thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Melton. We appreciate your presentation.
Thank you.
All right. The next item on our agenda is discussion items, first being the trustees' exchange of information. We'll start with the left side here. Ms. Griffin, do you have anything? Mr. Loder?
No.
All right. Dr. Castaneda? Mr. Nag? Wow. It's a quiet group tonight. All right.
Keep it moving.
Next item. Next item on the agenda is review of calendar items. We're most of the way through June. I think probably one of the key things to point out is the fact that the Economic Development Steering Committee meeting this month has been canceled. Is there any other discussion with regard to what's on our board calendar? All right. Moving then to our next item, future agenda items. Does any board member have a future agenda item? Ms. Griffin?
Yes, Mr. President, I would like to ask that we have a consolidated system implementation project plan that outlines the project plans for each of the major systems that we're implementing this summer. Skyward and the student management system, curriculum. It's probably 5 or 6 more that I can't think of. But if we could have that consolidated project list at each board meeting so that we can look at what's going on in those projects. I think most of the time we usually wait till the project is completed, but we have a pretty aggressive schedule for many items
All
for
right.
the next school year.
So just so I'm sure, or I understand what you'd like an information report for
All
through
of the systems.
through the beginning of the school year with regard to new major projects and systems being implemented for the next school year.
Right. When we approve those purchases, in the information at that time was a detailed project plan. I think we just pull that project plan out, do a consolidated list, and for every system, we can look at where we are and have it at every board meeting until we are implemented.
Good suggestion. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other agenda items? Okay. The next item then is to move into our consent agenda. Before we take up a motion with regard to our consent agenda, Mr. Booker has informed me that with regard to one of our bids, new bid E9, Discovery Education and Instructional Materials, that the vendor has indicated to us in writing that they would not agree to the buy board requirements. And so as a result, we are putting that out for RFQ, and it'll come back to us, I believe, in the end of July. Ms. Griffin?
Did we not know that before we, buy board is not new, and did we not know that before we brought that was brought to us as a new bid?
No, ma'am, Ms. Griffin, it is our standard process that once we identify a vendor on a cooperative, we review the terms and conditions. It was not until after we had presented it to the Board of Trustees and started discussions with the supplier that they provided us the written documentation that there were only 2 methods, that they would honor that, one through EMAT or direct relationship with the district.
And if I remember the purchase of the asterisks here, that meant they were new?
That's correct.
So we had not done any business with
Well,
them
we did business through the EMAT system,
Okay,
which is basically the State Board of
Right.
Education's textbook or instructional material allotment.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Booker with regard to this item that's being pulled? All right. All right, well then, thank you, Mr. Booker, and we will, or I would, do I hear a motion with regard to our consent agenda?
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as amended, taking E9 off the table.
There's been a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All right, let's indicate a vote on the motion by raising your hand. All in favor, please raise your hand. And that passes 5-0. All right, moving then to our action items, non-consent. The first item for consideration is the approval of the Student Code of Conduct for 2014. And
All right. Good evening, President Lambert, Dr. Morrison, trustees. I am coming before you this evening for approval, of course, of our Student Code of Conduct, but I'm going to take you through our road to creating this, and hopefully our final destination will be approval this evening. So this year with our Student Code of Conduct, we wanted to make sure that we aligned all of our documents that are governing us. And so we wanted to address how we had done our Student Code of Conduct in the past. We'd used TASB as a model for our Student Code of Conduct, sort of guidelines, but this year we went through and we've aligned our Student Code of Conduct, our Student Handbook, and our Employee Handbook so that they are all aligned and we should not have anything that is out of alignment. In order to merge everything together and come in line with the TASB model, we had to go through and look at the differences between what we had and the TASB model. We got input from our district-specific policies. We noted discrepancies, and then we went before several different groups. We had, of course, student relations, which is headed by Mr. Baker and Ms. Dr. Sarah McCoy and Mr. William Woods make up our student relations department. We got their input, and actually they shepherded this entire process. We took it before our administrators from special education, from our different campuses, to get them to look at and give us input on our Student Code of Conduct as it falls within the TASB model. We also got different departments to look at it. We had a parent focus group, and we also had some students to join in on that process and give us some input on what they thought of the things we had in the Student Code of Conduct, what might need to change, what could be improved. And we, of course, received legal review from Mr. Graham, and our executive council here in the district looked at it as well. And so finally, we come to you for school board review. One of the items that we used this year, in addition to TASB, was the Dear Colleague letter that was issued by the Department of Justice and the Department of Education back in January. This letter was on the non-discriminatory administration of school discipline. It wasn't Garland specific. This was across the entire country. It looked at racial discrimination in school discipline, and in an effort to, of course, decrease that and get rid of that, but also to make sure that we were reinforcing positive behavior in our code of conduct and how we handle our discipline and behavior as a school district, and also character development and keeping our kids in class so that they can be successful. Some of the findings of the Dear Colleague letter and the Office of Civil Rights Research are that certain racial and ethnic groups tend to be disciplined more frequently than their peers, and that there is an increasing number of students that are losing instructional time due to exclusionary discipline. And there's also a direct correlation with out-of-school placements and the school-to-prison pipeline. And there's, of course, a correlation between exclusionary discipline and educational differences, economic differences, and social problems. So TEA's response was to have us look at our discipline a bit differently. Most of the research that was done in order to support this Dear Colleague letter was done here in the state of Texas, because our PEIMS information, our 425 record that we're required to keep our figures, our facts about student discipline in our school district is so extensive and just really a wealth of information. So Texas was sort of I guess we were ahead of the game and was really used as a model for what was going on and how to look at discipline. And we have a district response. And in our district response, we wanted to look at our exclusionary discipline. And exclusionary discipline, we have outlined here, are our in-school suspensions, out-of-school suspensions, and our DAEP placements. One of the things that we're doing as a district that is outlined in our code of conduct as a change is that we will no longer be using exclusionary discipline for truancy violations, tardy violations, or dress code violations. If a child does not wear an appropriate piece of clothing, it may be suggested that they go down the hall to the office and pick up a shirt that might be more appropriate, or that they cover a specific item of clothing that might not be appropriate, instead of looking at putting that student in ISS or in out-of-school suspension or a different placement. And we think that these three violations can be handled a lot differently than with an out-of-school placement. The second response that we have to the Dear Colleague letter is that we will make sure that we are remediating behavior and also applying response to intervention for behaviors that are exhibited, such as those that lead to a student being placed off campus at the DAEP for persistent misconduct. We'll make sure that we are implementing prior parents and student conferences, and that we've tried progressive behavior techniques, and also that there is a behavior plan in place. You all have been generous enough to make sure that we have the Review 360 behavior management plan and program within our school district. And so we can use that to implement different interventions with our students, and also to score and make sure that those interventions are working, or maybe they're not working and we need to do something different. But we have a way within the school district that we can monitor that. And within that program, we also have supports for teachers. If they're not sure what strategies they might be able to use with the student, they're there right at their fingertips. There's not a whole lot of research that needs to be done because it's within the system. And prior to any out-of-campus placement at the DAEP, approval is required by our student relations department. And we've been implementing that all year long. And to a certain extent, each of these measures that you see have been implemented at our campuses. We are just putting these into our student code of conduct at this time. So some of the other proposed changes that come outside of the Dear Colleague letter that we thought just made good sense because they were either recommended by TASB or they were recommended by some of our groups that we met with. The Student Code of Conduct and the Student Handbook are going to be combined into one booklet for the parents, but they will be put into two separate sections. Parents will have the option to waive their rights to a hard copy, but they must sign an acknowledgement of electronic distribution, and they can request the hard copy that way. We'll also make sure that our code of conduct is easily accessible on the district's main website, as it is now. A few other of the changes are that our DAEP placement days will be modified for consistency. Schools will investigate thefts over $500 for possible placement, student placement at the district alternative education program. That used to read $200, and there are quite a few things that are worth $200. And so we did up that, and that actually came as a recommendation from our administrators and our parents. Telecommunications devices and other electronic devices are permissible. They used to be in the section of devices or things that were not permissible on the campuses. And so we've changed that as a support to our district BYOD policy, bring your own device, that will be in our student handbook. So those are our proposed changes, a lot more than I think the two that we brought forward last year when we had our first presentation of the Student Code of Conduct in the Student Services Department. So do you all have any questions at this time about the Student Code of Conduct or any of the changes that we propose?
Questions?
Yes.
Ms. Griffin?
what is the data showing? Do we, with the Dear Colleague letter, I'd like a copy of that if I could.
Okay.
Have that. But did we look at data for us to get to the changes that we wanted to achieve? So we were in line, not really in line, but we were, I don't know what the word is. Our district answered the call to some of those things in the Dear Colleague letter. That's one thing. And I just want to know, what did the data show? Did you all run data for those various deals? And what did it actually show? And what did we look like?
We looked at our data that we turn in for our 425 record, which is what we turn into PEIMS. Primarily what the Dear Colleague letter is looking at is different treatment or disparate impact on certain racial groups. And so every 6 weeks we have Mr. Javier Solis, who actually looks at our off-campus placements at the DAEP. And we are, if we look at the different ethnic groups, we are actually in line with where we need to be and a little bit below. But there are certain campuses that we know are going to need some additional supports. We are looking at the positive behavior support initiative for several of our campuses, and this is something that is supported within Review 360. And we had an initiative a few years ago where we had 19 campuses to go through a Safe and Civil Schools positive behavior support initiative that has carried on at particular campuses, but we know that's something that needs to spread. So we're looking at implementing that in different places across the district so that we're responding appropriately to students' behavior.
So with all of the professional development and with having a person on board, does 360 training become a part of all of that professional development? And who's monitoring the reports that are coming out of 360 for us to know that there's somewhere we need to look?
Review 360 has been a part of our mandatory training at the beginning of every school year. Mm-hmm. We make sure that everyone goes through the bullying and harassment training. And then this past year, with the wonderful support of Dr. Morrison, we had over 97% of our staff to finish and complete I think there are about 8 behavior modules so that they can lay the groundwork for positive behavior support on their campuses. And so that started in earnest. We really got off the ground with that this past year. John Pointer, Dr. John Pointer in our office is the person who monitors those numbers, contacts campuses, asks them about their training, sees where they are, and actually goes out and provides direct support to campuses in the area of behavior.
Okay, thanks.
Any further questions? Ms. Hempel, thank you very much for your report, and Mr. Baker, for everybody else in Student Services. Dr. Morrison, thank you very much for taking a comprehensive look at our Code of Conduct policy this year, and in particular, I'm very pleased to see the response to the Dear Colleague letter from OCR. It's important that we treat our students equally, and I'm pleased to see that we're looking good with regard to the data, but to respond to that, to look at true behavioral problems and how we can respond to it and improve behavior instead of just punishing it, I think is a fabulous thing. And then looking at the realities of the impact of removing students from the classroom is an excellent response. And I commend you all for your changes in policy, and we look forward to seeing how those are making a positive impact going forward.
Thank you very much.
But before we do that, though, we need to we need a motion with regard to the Student Code of Conduct.
I'll make a motion that we approve the Student Code of Conduct for 2014-15 as printed in our agenda.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion with regard to the Code of Conduct? Seeing none, we'll have a vote. Would you please all in favor raise your hands? And I see that the item passes 5-0. Next item on our agenda is consider the approval of revisions to board policies from TASB Update 99 This is second reading, so we've already had discussion on this item. Is there any further discussion with regard to TASB Update 99?
I did want to bring something to your attention, board members. As we discussed in the first reading, you requested that we strike the section that talked about individual board members channeling their request through the board president and the superintendent.
That's right.
We have made that change as you've requested. That's the only difference you'll see here on the second reading, and as administration, we have recommended approval of these policies.
Mr. Graham, thank you very much for that reminder. I think Ms. Griffin was the one that requested that change with input from Mr. Luna and from others. And so is there any comments with regard to the revision on that particular policy? Okay, good. All right. Any further questions?
I'll make a motion that we approve the revisions as printed in our agenda.
Second.
There's been a motion and second, and we've already had discussion, so unless there's further discussion, we will go ahead and have a vote. All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. It passes 5-0. Our next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report. The May 2014 tax report is first. Ms. Holmes?
Good evening, Mr. Lambert, Dr. Morrison, and trustees. Our May tax collection report, the adjusted current levy is $164,586,897.68. The current levy outstanding as of May 31st is $2,850,667.54, and the delinquent outstanding levy as of May 31st is $4,463,776.68. Any questions?
Any questions with regard to the tax report?
Oh, and our percentage is 98.27, so.
Right, saw that. Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is review of March and April 2014 financial statements.
Ms. Gilbertson. Mr. May was unavailable.
Okay. Ms. Gilbertson, is that right?
Yes.
Good, thank you.
President Lambert, trustees, Dr. Morrison, you should have been provided with copies of the March 2014 and April 2014 financial statements. Unless you have objections, I'd like to present highlights just in April, as they are similar to those that you will see in March. You will notice on the first graph that was provided to you that in our general fund, which is Fund 199, actual year-to-date payroll costs are slightly less than budget, but basically consistent with the year-to-date budgeted amounts. These amounts are approximately 5% higher than last year at the same time, and that is in line with our expectations given the 3% raise that we instituted and an increase in our district health insurance contribution and just in general an increase in positions. Looking at our schedule of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance for our general fund, we're about 67% through, well, that's not about, we're 67% through the year, and given that, we expect our expenses to be 67%. We fall in line with those expectations in all functions except for two. That would be function 36, which is our extracurricular, and we are not concerned by that based on timing of events and things like that. You figure that that is going to even out in the summer as we don't expect those expenses. Also, function, 99 is over that 67%, but that is representative of the Dallas Central Appraisal District, and those payments are made on their schedule, not necessarily according to the year. In 240, which is our food service fund, again, we expect that 67% of the expenses will have occurred. Right now, we're at 71%. That is basically due to an increased requirement for the serving size of our students' meals. If you have questions on that, I would direct you to the food service department. And finally, for Fund 199, you will notice that revenues are greater than what we would expect based on the amount of the year that has passed. That is due to the earlier payment from TEA for our EDA and our IFA, $5 million. And again, for the expenses, we make those payments based on the bond payment schedule. And so we're at 100% right now, and that will stay that way through the end of the year. If you have any questions, I would be happy to address them.
Trustees, any questions? Thank you very much for the report. All right. The last item in superintendent's report is a board policy recommendation with regard to DFBB. If you'll recall, Trustee Axe requested that this item be brought before us at this meeting. Unfortunately, in the interim time between then and now, his wife Eula has had surgery today, and as you can see, he is not here. And so in deference to the fact that it's his item, it would be my recommendation that we pull it and place it on the next agenda. So, with that being said, we will now move into executive session for the purposes stated under the Open Meetings Act, specifically the items A and B listed on our agenda. It is 7:14. All right, it is 9:04, and we are out of executive session, and I will certify that no matters were discussed in executive session other than the ones posted as stated in the agenda. Are we hitting the personnel items? And adjournment is first. Is that right?
No, personnel first.
Yeah. Is there any
action?
Is there any action relative to our executive session?
Just the personnel items, and I move to approve the personnel items that received in our agenda, and specifically these into the following positions. Dr. Glenda Williams, Principal, North Garland High School. Rachel Brown, Principal, Schrady Middle School. Kenneth Washington, Principal, Webb Middle School. Dr. Kristen Wolfkill, Principal, Bradfield Elementary School. Jill Vincent, Principal, Etheridge Elementary School. Dr. Amy Pennington, Principal, Herforth Elementary School. Eliza Whitrock, Principal, Liberty Grove Elementary School. Additionally, Ernest Espino Jr., Assistant Principal, Naaman Forest High School. Keith Ellis, Assistant Principal, South Garland High School. Lisa Cox, President of the Best Foundation. Xochitl Tanya Vargas, Elementary Human Resource Director. Sandra Thompson, Coordinator of Career and Technology. And Steve Martin, Internal Auditor.
Second.
All right, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the personnel items, please raise your hand. That passes 5-0. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move adjourn.
Second.
All right, we're adjourned.